Welcome back to the Jupiter podcast. I'm your host, Tom Franklin, and today we have on the incredible, the amazing Neil Ballas. He was my the first person I contacted when the old show, the Eye of Jupiter, what was it called? The Lost Frequency. I can't even remember it anymore. That's good. That means I'm not messing up anymore. When it changed over to where we separated and Rye did his own thing and I did mine, and he was the first person that came to my mind to have on the show because he's incredible at what he does. He's super well spoken, super well read, and brings up things that I've never thought about before. He's a great conversationalist, and we're going to have a ton of fun. Today, we're going to be talking about the Book of Enoch. I know it's a forbidden book of the Bible, and that's pretty much all I know about it. I do know a couple other little things, but I'm sure he will go into great detail. And I'm sure if you guys have your questions, do me a favor and write them in the chat, and then we'll see if we can get to some of those. A little bit of housekeeping. If you keep finding yourself coming back to the Eye of Jupiter podcast, please do me a favor. Like and subscribe to the channel. It doesn't, not too much work on your behalf, but it helps me out a great deal. We are 800. We are on our road to 1,000. Also, do me a favor, guys. Like the channel, and maybe we can get this episode to 30 likes. I've never had 30 likes before. At least I don't think I have. Maybe somewhere along the line. Normally, I'm around the 20, 25 range. Let's see if we can get it to 30 today. You can also find me on Rumble. You can also find me on Spotify. And tomorrow I have a special live. We are going to be doing it's a collaboration between me and my buddy, the Magical Journey, and that's the name of his podcast channel as well. Go over and subscribe to Magical Journey. And we're going to have on Fisher of Spam, and his podcast, his show is called Fisher of Spam Night Watch, I believe. I hope I didn't get that wrong. And it's going to actually be on his channel. Pam, I'm sure you'll go ahead and do me a favor and put that link in the bottom. You'll catch us on there tomorrow at 9:30 Eastern time, and we're going to be talking about lost history, one of my favorite subjects. Who knows what we're going to get into? Get your questions ready, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. And that podcast will be, sporadically, and it's going to rotate from channel to channel. That way we spread the love. And you guys go over and subscribe to each one of those channels as well as mine, and you'll get more content like that. You can also become a member on the YouTube and get extra episodes early, as well as a nice background. That way you guys can, special desktop background personalized by moi, and I'll put your name on it and all that, and you get that for, I think it's like $7 a month. I don't exactly remember. But anyhow, now that all the housekeeping is done, please, a warm, heartfelt welcome to the Eye of Jupiter podcast, Mr. Neil Ballas.
Hey, how's it going, Tom?
Hey, you were over there looking at your screen. Hey, man, thanks for coming on again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me.
Like always, dude, you're amazing at what you do.
Did I lose you? Ooh, I think I lost you.
No pressure, Neil, but I want you guys to really issues. Okay, I'm back. You're back.
Okay, yep, I'm here.
Okay, so if I fall out or you fall out, one of us stays on here. That way we'll keep coming back. I've been having issues with my internet lately. I do not know what's going on, but it's been a little funky. Okay, what I was trying to say is that this dude right here, this is, I think, the third or fourth time that I've interviewed you or had you on to talk about, subjects that you're interested in. The last one was the the Hidden Forest. What was it called?
We were talking about the dark forest analogy.
The dark forest hypothesis, right?
Yeah,
and that was crazy. Never heard of that before. Turn on my air conditioner. Tom's sweating. So go ahead and in the comments, be as nice as you can and try to get this dude to actually podcast. This is the guy, and I've been trying to get him to do it forever. He's got a great personality. He's well spoken, and he knows his shit. And he doesn't either, which is fun too, because he's good at realizing when we all do wrong. Anyway, dude, Neil, once again, for the people who do not know who you are, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what it is that you're into and, anything that you're promoting.
Okay, not really promoting anything. My name's Neil. I'm just a big paranormal fan. I love anything that's otherworldly. I'm always been fascinated with it, always been intrigued by stuff that we don't fully understand. And my brain is super curious, and I always want to try to figure out things that we don't know, or try to answer questions, or try to solve problems, whether looking at patterns or just even just speculating, just playing around and being creative. I think all that stuff's super fun. I've also been kind of riddled with paranormal stuff my whole life. It's always been around me. I've seen tons of UFOs. I've had some weird ones, some normal ones, just some, oh, a light moved in the sky and then it changed direction,
Yeah.
small stuff like that, to then seeing some crazy stuff where objects merge together and then shoot off. And um,
Yeah.
but
You were telling me that you seen something yesterday or the day before yesterday?
It was the what was it? It was the 19th, during that super moon, whatever. I saw some friends that had posted some pictures, so I went outside and I was like, I'm gonna take a look and see if it's clear, try to get a picture. And so I was out on at the side of my house, and I did have a great view of the moon. And um, I just have my phone, which is just an S22 Ultra, so it can take decent pictures of the moon. So I was snapping a few and trying to hold it steady, and at like 80x zoom, it's just the slightest movement jacks everything up. But then I put my phone down and I just looked up and I noticed that there was a star, like like if the moon was here, the star was like right here. It was like close, but not like right on it. But the moon was so bright, I was like, man, that's kind of weird that I can see a star even with all the brightness of the moon washing out everything. And so I just kept looking at it, and then clouds were rolling in, and it looked like it was moving, but it was moving so slow, like just barely. And I'm like, no, that's my brain playing tricks on me. Um, so I pulled out my like star chart, star map or whatever, to check, and there was no star by the moon. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then I just kept looking at it, and I tried to zoom in and catch it, but I couldn't stabilize. Like with that, when you're shooting like the moon, the camera will actually lock onto it, and it kind of stabilizes the picture and helps you lock in to get a shot. But it won't do that on stars. Um, so it wasn't getting in focus. It wasn't stabilizing. Couldn't really lock it down. And then I noticed it was most certainly was moving, but it wasn't a satellite. I know what satellites look like. I've seen thousands of them. And it wasn't a plane. There was nothing on the flight radar. Wasn't a star. Wasn't a planet. And it was most certainly drifting away from the moon, very slowly, but moving down. And then I thought that my vision was blurry or something, because it didn't quite. It looked like it had a shape to it. It didn't look exactly um, like just a dot in the sky. And so I kept trying to like squint my eyes. I even did the thing where you make a little small dot and you bring it up to your eye and it helps you like focus. And none of that changed. It still was like a just a weird shape. And it just kind of drifted away, and it was kind of changing direction too as it was going. It was kind of curving down.
Huh.
And then clouds rolled behind it when I was trying to get another shot of it. Clouds were behind it and the whole sky was clouding up. So I gave up at that point. But I was like, that's kind of strange. So I didn't think a whole lot of it. And the next day I went to, or in the morning, I went to like text one of my friends and be like, hey, I saw something weird last night. And I actually asked a few other friends um, who had taken some pictures, like if they had seen that too. And nobody saw anything. And then I was scrolling through Facebook, and one of the groups I'm in, somebody posted, um, they shared somebody else's post about how they were like, oh, I saw this in the sky last night when I was taking pictures of the moon, and it was the same weirdly shaped object that I saw. And I was like, oh my god, that was like the exact same thing I saw. It was like, it wasn't like he had like zoomed in, actually got it, and it was this like squiggly shaped thing. And
Huh.
yeah, so then I looked at the guy's profile because I was curious about where he lived, and I found out he lived in the UK.
Hmm.
And that really like surprised me. I'm like, well, that's completely different. That's hours away from each other. And it
Right.
didn't I didn't see where he said what time that he saw it. I saw it was 11:10 um Eastern time, and in the UK, that's, I think they're like 5 or 6 hours ahead of
Five
me.
hours ahead. 5 hours. So that'd
Yeah.
be like 4 in the morning.
Yeah, so but I don't know what time that they, that they
Actually,
saw that,
right.
but it was,
Plus,
It
you would
was the
think the
same
angle would
thing.
be a little different too. You would think the angle would
Exactly.
be a little right.
Yeah, so the only thing that I was thinking, I was like, well, then if that's the case, it would, if we both saw the same thing, if it was the same thing, and it very well could have been something different, but it would make more sense then that it wasn't local to us, that it was more closer to the moon. But then the size of the object would have to be huge at that point, and I think that way too many people would see it. So I don't know if we just saw the same thing and it was just flying around internationally or not, but uh,
Wow.
one thing I one thing I did see though was that there's a juice, I think it was, craft that flew by the moon to take and took some pictures of it that night too. It was like a NASA, like I believe it's a craft that's going to be heading out to Jupiter. I think is the idea of this thing. Um,
Yay!
yeah, but but yeah, it did fly in front of the moon and take some pretty like cool pictures of it. But what I saw wasn't in front, and that was too close. It was way too far down and away, and it was heading away from the moon. But it was weird. I mean, it wasn't a plane. It was way too high to be a drone. Made no
Right?
noise. There was nothing on the flight radar. Definitely wasn't a satellite. Um, I, I mean, wasn't the space station. It was just
Yeah.
it was just kind of weird.
You always seem to be like a little bit magnetic to it. You were saying when you were a kid, or like kind of drawn to it. When you were a kid, you were just there was a story you told us where you're 3 years old, standing out the window, and your mom comes in your room. She's like,
Yeah,
"What are you looking at?" And you're like, "I don't want them to come get me." And your mom was probably thinking, "I have a strange son." So your
yeah,
whole life, that's what you were telling me, and it made me laugh like always.
yeah, yeah. It was
And I was
actually,
just thinking like this guy.
I think the quote my mom had written down, because she has a baby book of me, and I believe the quote was, "I don't like it when they take me while I'm sleeping. I want to see them come." Like, I think it was
Oh my!
something
She
along
wrote all
those
that
lines.
down.
Yeah, because she was like, my
Oh
child
wow!
is weird. I mean, she also wrote down things like when she asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said a trash can. So she wrote that stuff down too. but but that actually has the reason why I said that is when I was a kid, when the trash truck would come to take out the trash, my bed was in the corner of my room, and the bass that was generated by that truck was in like the low 30 hertz range, and it would shake my whole bed, and I loved the bass from it. So every like Saturday morning or whenever the trash truck would come, the dump it would just
So,
and I loved it.
okay.
And so I wanted to be the trash can so that I could be close to that bass as it was rumbling. And as I got older, I became an audiophile and a bass head.
Yeah, so like the show we're having on tomorrow. Fisher's on here. Fisher Spam. It's going to be on Fisher Spam's Night Watch, and it's going to be. We're going to have Magical Journeys on with us, and he has his own channel and all that. Guys, go over and check out the links. I posted them here earlier, and they're both like huge Tool fans. You know what I mean? So, and I
Yeah.
know you're a Tool fan, so it's like like that kind of music also. If you guys don't know who Tool is by now and you've been living under a rock for the last 30 years, go and check out my favorite album, Lateralist. And
Oh,
then
so good.
my second favorite album is 10,000 Days.
Mine
Check
too.
out those two albums and welcome to the club, and you will realize why those certain types of minds come together. Very interesting music, very interesting topics. Speaking of interesting topics, let's get into the Book of Enoch.
All
What do
right.
you?
Yeah.
Let's go. I'll give you the floor, dude. And as questions come up in the bottom, I'll try to get them up there. And if I have one, of course, I'll interject as well. But you're good at what you do, man. So go for it.
All right. Yeah. So the Book of Enoch was something that when I was in college, because I'm 40 now. It was back when I was in my early 20s. It was something that came up that I was reading about. And I was like, yeah, what is that? Because I grew up in a Christian church. I was a Baptist, Southern Baptist church. And I was really into studying the Bible and reading it a lot, breaking it down. And the more and more I studied the Bible, the more I was like, there's some weird stuff in here, man. There's a lot of like I didn't know anything about the ancient astronaut theory stuff, but
Okay.
a lot of it to me sounded like that, like because I was big and still big into like UFOs. I had seen plenty of craft back then, um, and I was like, man, I wonder if some of these interpretations of angels and stuff and demons are just some of these uh, like beings. I wonder if we misinterpreted them, and maybe they were,
Okay.
non-human intelligence that we just didn't know how to describe. And so the more I read, diving in deeper into that, I found the Book of Enoch. And so I got like a PDF of it in the early 2000s, and I started reading it and going through it, and I'm like, this is wild. And so the first thing I thought about it was like, oh, this must be some fan fiction that somebody made and people quote. And then I
Wow.
found, going further into it, that like there was copies of it found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's dated back to being written around, like, I think it's around like 300 BC roughly. uh, and now Enoch would have lived around 3000 BC. So that's part of the reason why the modern Bible doesn't include. That's one of the reasons why it doesn't
Okay.
include it, is that it wasn't written by apparently not written by the actual author. It wasn't written by Enoch. Now that's kind of, for me, a hard. It's sketchy, because like the Gospels weren't written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They were written by other people, and they were stories that had been told and passed down, and it's possible that Enoch's book was the same way. So to me, that's
Okay.
kind of like, well, why keep those in if you're going to get rid of this one? But when you actually dive into the Book of Enoch, it kind of makes sense why they didn't want to keep it in, because there's some really interesting stuff in there. Because the Book of Enoch goes through a number of tales. Now, Enoch was, um, I believe he was, like, he was around pre-flood, and I believe, if I remember correctly, he was like the son of Methuselah. No, the father. I'm sorry, the father of Methuselah. Um, and he was basically known as like a diplomat, and somebody that the gods found favor on. And this is during the time, when the fallen angels had come to Earth, and or what we call the fallen angels, even though they just called them back then the sons of God. And Enoch describes them coming down, just like in Genesis chapter, uh, what is it, Genesis 6:1 or whatever it is, that talks about the sons of God saw the daughters of men, found them beautiful, and had children with them. And he talks about that, like that's brought up, and these sons of God like really liked Enoch, and like hung out with him, and they hung out with humans, and they gave humans technology. They taught us about art and science. They taught women prostitution. And
What?
the Book of Enoch talks about all this, and actually these, what we call or what he calls the sons of God. He gives a bunch of their names, and what's interesting with the names is that a lot of them have el at the end of them.
Okay.
And in like Hebrew, the having el is like God. So
Okay.
he was actually calling, or the names of these beings were actually calling them gods. So there's a lot of people that actually see that the Book of Enoch is polytheistic. um and also the way that he treats them, like he does talk about a most high and a supreme, um that he visits. And it's just kind of really interesting, because it's a very different, like the Book of Genesis just quickly scans over the whole sons of God thing and the Nephilim, and it just brings them up real quick. And then there's like little bits here and there that are talked about the Nephilim, like, um, and then it basically, when it comes down to the flood, that these sons of God were given an option to leave, and some of them were like, no, I'm not going to do what you tell me. I'm going to stay here. And they got buried beneath the earth, and got buried beneath the earth, stayed here, and the flood
Okay.
wiped them all out. But the flood didn't technically wipe them all out, because you have David and Goliath, and Goliath was a giant.
Right.
And so it's like some of them still were around, either that or some more of these sons
Yeah.
of God
Even
came
the
back
giant
down.
of Kandahar and all those. That's a
Yeah,
completely another thing, but it's tying it into what you're talking about. Yes.
yeah. And so there was it basically, the way that Enoch describes it too is goes in way more detail than what Genesis does, and
Okay.
also talks about the how the Nephilim that were created were destroying mankind, and that they were at war with them, because they were more intelligent than us, they were stronger than us, they did everything better. And so that was part of the reason why the Most High, the Supreme God, was like, I gotta do something about this. And the Book of Enoch also talks about that they became evil spirits. Like when the flood happened, when they all got wiped out, that they are what are now we know as evil spirits. And I think that part is really interesting too. Like, because I mean, a lot of people who take the religious side will take that as, oh, well, that's like a demon. That's what people get possessed by. That's the poltergeist forces, things like that. Um, but it makes me wonder what he could possibly be talking about with that. Like, does he actually mean that? Does he mean spirits in the form of how we view spirits, or could it be some other? Like, could there be another interpretation there? Um, I just find those things like pretty interesting. Um,
No kidding.
Yeah, and another really interesting thing about Enoch is that he he used to be taken. He would be taken by these sons of God. Oh, my kitty's coming to say hi. I think she's yelling at me. Hey, baby.
Hi, kitty.
She won't come up here. She
Neil,
flops behind me and then
Neil loves
yells
his
at me.
kitty cat, but sometimes the cat doesn't love you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, she's attacked me quite a bit. I'm all bloody up here. But no, one of the things that's really interesting is that he gets taken by these sons of God, and he gets like flown around, and he talks about all these places that he goes, and some of the things are really interesting that he sees. Like he says, one of the things he says is that he saw a lake of fire coming out of the water and flowing in rivers down back to the water, which to me that sounds like he was witnessing a volcano in the middle of the
Yeah,
ocean.
exactly.
And like that's something that he wouldn't have known about back then. And there's not volcanoes in the area where Enoch was living, out in the Middle East. So like it's something that's like, okay, well this guy must have really been taken
We've
places
seen
and not
something.
just
Yeah.
yeah, not just it's not just some people just writing down gibberish and making stuff up, you know. And he talks about flying to like different parts of the earth and like seeing like the ends of the earth and um flying over like these different terrains. And then he talks about going into the heavens and going like beyond like it's so there's a couple things that actually are interesting here, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be might jump around a little
No,
bit.
dude, trust me, I'm with you, man. Go for it.
Because there's a lot of talk in the flat Earth community about using the Book of Enoch as a, like
Which we here at the Eye of Jupiter do not ascribe to.
yeah,
Just trying to protect.
I'm not a
I'm
flat Earther.
protecting myself. Good, figure that out, algorithm.
But yeah, so there's talk of like the firmament and things like that, and talk of like the ends of the earth. But he also says that he goes beyond those things, and he's in other realms, and he's in the birthplace of like spirits and stuff. And it almost to me
Wow.
sounds like he's talking about like in space. And he says that when he goes to visit the Most High, that he actually goes to it says that he leaves, he witnesses like the birth of the stars, like these, and he talks about like pillars of fire in the sky, like in this area that he's in. And then he says that he is taken to a crystal castle, like this castle where the walls are made of crystals and they're powered by fire.
Wow.
And like, where did he go? Like
Yeah.
it's just some crazy stuff that's really interesting.
Walls of fire. That sounds like that place that Superman was living, kind of, but with
Yeah,
fire.
right. And it's like it really makes me wonder, just from like a just pure speculative like sci-fi um point of view, like what if that meant like somewhere because there's planets where like I think it's either Saturn or Jupiter where it rains diamonds, so I mean, could there be a planet that out there where there's like where crystals can just form into these massive like castle caverns, and maybe it's a gas giant because it would require like extreme pressure and whatnot to create that? And could it be that there's beings living on planets like that and he was taken somewhere like that? I
Right.
mean, maybe
Or maybe crossing
it's
some type
wild.
of like if you like the firmament could be like a synonym or something like that, where he kind of passed through into another dimension and seen,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean. That could be something. Who knows? You can read into that a lot. Was
Oh
it
yeah.
also like struck down out of the Bible? Was it ever in the Bible, the Book of Enoch?
Okay, so I know that in from the Judaism side, uh, Enoch did talk about a Jewish Messiah coming, and they weren't okay with that.
Mhm.
So as far as like being in the Torah, it was never in there, but it was adopted by some early Christian
Okay.
um, groups, and then it was around. I believe it was like the Council of Nicaea, which happened around like 300 AD. I believe around there.
350. I think it was 351.
Okay, yeah. It was around there that there was like some groups still
Hello.
kept it in their Bible and others did not, and they just basically were like, no, you know what, we're gonna just scrub it. We're getting rid of this. There's talk about multiple gods here, and our God is apparently the most high one, but there's other gods as well, and it talks about these gods, but it also talks about how a god can become man, and that's also kind of
Oh
blasphemous
wow,
because
that's
only
interesting.
only our God can become man and become Jesus. Because that was one thing too that he talked about, that some of these gods gave up their spiritual beings to go and become mortal and to go back down to earth and to exist there. And that's something that's kind of not okay, from a if you look at the rest of the Bible, it would kind of not agree with a lot of the things the Bible talks about, that there was other gods that decided that they could become man and go down to
Oh
earth.
wow.
So
Is that why that the first commandment says that?
um I don't know if it's related. I mean, it's possible it could be related. It could be related just to the times, because there were other gods around. They're just always touted as like false gods.
Okay,
Like Baal.
kind of a
And
polytheism, monotheism kind of thing. You mean?
yeah, and like we look at, like, if you look at the Bible, and you read about like Baal, again with that
Okay.
at the end, he's known as like a false god, and like, oh, he's fake, and all the worshippers were cutting themselves and trying to
Oh
sacrifice
wow.
animals to create that fire. And I forget what prophet it was.
It's actually exactly Fisher, the little G and the big G. Right. I was gonna
Yeah,
say that.
yeah,
You beat me to it.
yeah. And so with the Book of Enoch, though, all these other little g gods are also very much gods. They just aren't as powerful as the most high, as they call them. So I think that's a big thing. But I believe that there is still, I think there's some Christian groups that still do follow it. I think it's like in like the Ethiopian. There's like an Ethiopian
Yes. Someone
group.
mentioned that same guy, Fisher Spam. He's on it, man. He said the Ethiopian Bible.
Okay, yeah, 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 because they still do follow it, and I mean, there's some really interesting stuff in there too. There's also a lot of interesting things about information that we didn't think that people had back then, and that's far as like cycles of the moon um and the sun, and as far as like, it's kind of, I won't say cryptic, but it's kind of weird how he describes it all. But he does kind of go in and say that he was taught about the moon and taught about the sun and their paths in the sky and how they orbit and all that. And I guess, oh, did I lose you again? May have lost you.
This with my yeah. It's one of those things where it keeps shutting it out.
Yeah.
It is the rainy season. It is the rainy season, and it's been dumping buckets, man. And if I don't move my truck, like if I don't park out here before I come here, it will literally wash down the street, which I've had to do before. and I've
Yo.
Indiana Jones it into the truck. And the first time, because I don't have my handbrake doesn't work right, so and I normally now I know turn the wheel into the curb,
Yeah,
so it
into the
just
curb.
pushes against it. But now I park up on the hill, and if not, the neighbor will go, "Your truck's in the water." But yeah, so when that heavy rain, I guess maybe it affects the quality of the internet. And internet, Mexico is still a third world country, so guys, bear with me.
Yeah, that's all good. But yeah, it just some of the stuff about the patterns of the moon and the sun in the skies is another thing I think that a lot of flat earthers like use to try to say the moon's local and the sun is local, which I don't. Yeah, I don't really buy
Yeah,
into that.
we
But
don't agree with that. The flat Earth is a bunch of BS.
well, I really think it is.
Yeah, that's okay.
But
I'm a fence sitter, but it's nothing wrong with being a fence sitter. I don't know.
yeah,
I've never been up there. I thought I
yeah,
could tell
yeah. I
you,
mean,
but
yeah, there's that too. I've never been to space, so I can't.
yeah,
Never
I've
been
been
up there.
here in space. I've been here. There's a lot of
Oh
space
yeah.
in here too. A lot of like bones and stuff in there. But yeah, okay. By the way, guys, please. Now we're gonna take a little thing here, and you guys tell Neil how much he should be podcasting. Go for it. I want to see you guys right. This guy is incredible, is he not? Listen to his voice, his sultry voice. You should be at least doing audiobooks, brother.
Voice.
Sultry voice.
You know, actually,
Slowing
I would.
forward.
I've actually thought about that, and I kind of would like to be. Like,
You're
I would
good
like to
at
do
it, dude.
audiobooks. I think
The
it'd be
first
fun.
time we had you on, it was not video. We didn't do video back then. And I just heard
Yeah.
your voice, and I was just like, this guy is freaking incredible. Remind me before we get up out of here, towards the end, you have to go and tell about your Salvin. Every time you get on, you got to tell about your Salva Divinorium experience. We'll get to that later because that is one of my favorite things I've ever heard on this podcast.
You know, I've
And
had quite a few of them.
Okay. But oh yeah, you
Yeah.
told me there's ones where you just stand at the bank, just
Yeah.
line at the bank, and there's other ones that are.
Yeah, that other life one though is just I don't even know. It's just that was one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me. And I don't know if you saw, but there was a guy in Joe Rogan that actually talked about where he had the same thing happen to him.
Yes,
but he lived,
I just
he
seen
lived
that.
much for like it was like months. Like he was like
No, like
months.
8 years.
Or
he woke
okay,
up on a
yeah.
boat. He like woke up
Yeah.
on a boat wet, and they're like, "Hey, we'll go grab the fishing line or whatever he's doing." He's like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Yeah, this is your wife. This is this." And then like after 6 years, 7 years, he goes, "I guess this is my life." And then once he accepted it, then he woke up back on his friend's floor, which was only like a second later, and he's like, and it also happened to Ari Shafir, a famous comedian,
really?
where he took, I don't know if it was LSD or something like that. He also lived like a completely different life. And yeah, we'll get to that eventually. We'll get to your story at the end. Back to the Book of Enoch. Oh, look, Pamela says, do it, Neil. There would be lots of help with this group going forward. Dude, thank you so much, Pam. One of my
maybe one day.
My great moderator. One of my great moderators, as I said.
Thanks, Pam.
All right. Yeah, dude. You're the best. You're the best.
But yeah, so I think one of the things that was the most fun in as far as going back, because I read Book of Enoch back when I was in high school, and in case anybody does want to listen to it themselves on Spotify, they have an audiobook for it, and if you have the Spotify Premium, whatever, they allow like 15 hours of audiobooks a month, and a lot of people don't know that, and the Book of Enoch is on there.
Oh wow!
And
okay.
I recently went back and listened to it over again, and had a great time. I was at work, I was just like, wow, this is so crazy. I forgot how crazy this was, how much really interesting stuff. And
what kind of job you got where you can sit around listening to the Book of Enoch? I got to get your career.
No, I work in a machine shop, so I'm in the back. I'm by myself back there, and I just pop in headphones and just go to town. And so that's what I do.
All your specs and you're on your milling machine and all that. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I don't know what they call that in German. I call it in German. I think it's I can't remember. But yeah, I've seen it before, but I don't know how to use it.
But yeah, just the stuff about him describing like the birthplace of stars almost, and also talking about that he got taken to a place that sounded like another dimension. It didn't sound like space. It didn't sound like anywhere on Earth. because the places he describes them pretty well. You can tell when he's like, oh, he's somewhere on Earth right now, and then other ones are like, are you in space? And then one, he described these like pillars and these balls of flame, and that he was told by uh, the sons of God that were with him that this was like an imprisonment for spirits and beings,
Oh,
and that like they didn't specifically call them evil, but ones that had like given up on certain aspects of their. It was like I can't. I'm missing the word for it now, but he didn't really call them evil, but it was basically a prison for these beings, and that some of them were going to be there for all time, which again makes it sound like that's in another dimension. That they were removed from our 3 or 4 dimensional space and placed somewhere else that exists throughout all time, and they're like almost like banished there. And
wow.
yeah, it's like,
It's so
man, to
cool.
have
I
been
gotta listen to this damn thing now, dude.
yeah, you really should, because I mean, it does get a little. It is a little like Bible heavy at some points where you're just like, okay, I'm definitely
A
listening
lot of
to
thou
something
shalt
biblical.
and all that kind of stuff. Like
I
thou
mean,
shalt
not
not.
so much, but almost. And some of the things when he talks about the like the moon and the sun and their patterns through the sky, it gets a little repetitive, and you're just like, okay, dude, I get it, man. You figured out the patterns of the moon. Like,
All
that's
right.
cool and
Fisher
all,
spam
but
and the super chats, dude. Thank you, buddy. $5. That's very nice of you. Thank you. I will
oh,
see you
nice.
tomorrow. I guess I'll get to give it back to you eventually when you start. All right, we'll get there. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, but
Oh yeah, that's
uh
incredible, man. That's incredible.
yeah, and yeah,
I love listening to cool, like just such like there's always like a book that comes along or a movie that comes along that just you think you've seen it all or you've heard it all, and it's just like that's such a great concept. And I
yeah.
think a lot of it is missing nowadays, especially in crappy wood, where you want to call it. That's a really bad joke, but like it's just like all they do is rehash superhero movies, and it's just I don't even watch. I've never even watched one. Well, that's not true. I did watch Iron Man a couple times, and I did, but other like all this super Trinity flying out the butt. I don't know what it is. I don't watch any of it. I go back and watch The Unforgiven or Gran Torino or something. I don't know why I
Yeah.
went straight Clint Eastwood on you, but I like older movies, or like even like the older like Indiana Jones movies and stuff like that. I don't like them. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, actually, we went back and we watched all the Indiana Jones, starting from the first to the most recent ones, and it's funny watching the. It's very, just the formula for the first 3 Indiana Jones movies is very much the same, where there's just like big loud music, dun 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun. Like, you can tell what's going to happen in the movie based on the music. But then they go to the fourth one or whatever that happened in like 2012, the Crystal Skull one, and it's like it changed,
Awful.
and
It was
it was
awful.
bad. It was bad. And the
There's a
most
new
recent
one too. I
one,
didn't see the new one yet.
yeah, it's not as bad as the Crystal Skulls, but it's still, they tried very hard to go back to the original equation, to try to like
Okay.
have the loud campy music,
To like
and
recapture.
it almost
Okay.
works. It's close.
Okay.
It's not terrible, but it's still not, like Temple of Doom. So, but
Yeah, but the first one is really stupid. I think they brought it up on the Big Bang Theory. Like, if they just never went there, the whole thing would just happen the same way if he wasn't even in the movie. And I was like, that's so true.
yeah,
It's really,
it's still
really
fun
silly.
though.
But
Still
I'm a
super
Last
fun.
Crusade guy myself. I love the Last
Yeah.
Crusade.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
that's like my favorite one.
Yeah, I think that's what we decided too. That was the best one. I think that was the general consensus among my group of friends.
Yeah.
But
So like when you're listening to like these incredible. I mean, is there? I don't know much about the Bible. I will be completely honest with you. I just can't get through it. And like I think Fisher was not Fisher, but Freaky Geek was bringing it up. It just gets kind of like confusing.
yeah,
And I understand it. I understand people's faith. I understand, I understand the power of Jesus, especially when it comes to being attacked by cryptids, or and you're in a strong paranormal situation, whether it be even demons or anything of that nature, that name holds sway for whatever reason, whether it truly is God, which a lot of people believe that. Like I said, once again, I'm not depriving people of their faith. I just never could, dude. I mean, I read like a page and I go, what am I reading, dude? Just I'm sorry. Like I said, I don't want to upset anyone. It's just I can't. And
Yeah.
I know that my buddies Pam and Fisher are like very heavily devout Christians. And I come from I'm a believer in God, and I've had my connections, and and it's been very personal to me. But I just cut out the middleman of the book, and I'm okay. You know what I mean? I'm all right.
Yeah.
I don't I don't need the screenplay to enjoy Temple of Doom.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and you bring up that the name of Jesus has power. So I'm just to be clear, I grew up very religious, not really religious anymore. But I don't judge people who are. Um, but I think there's a lot of really good information in the Bible. I think as
That's
far
true.
as like how to live your life, how
Yes.
to treat other people,
Yes.
things of that nature.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. There's a lot of weird stuff in there too. You're like, wait a minute.
yeah, there's a
They
lot of
had
weird stuff.
okay. There was the Adam and Eve, and then they had two sons, and then they had children. I'm like, well, where did these women come from?
Yeah, and also on that
It's like,
topic,
huh? Oh,
not only that, but after Cain kills Abel, and he gets marked and sent off, he's like, but they will know me and they're gonna try to kill me. And it's like, who? You're getting kicked out of like you're sent away, you're sent off. Like, who's gonna kill you? I thought you just killed your brother.
yeah. You're
Like,
on your yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean, buddy. Who's out there with
yeah.
another yacht?
Yeah, and so that part is really interesting to me, like wondering like who is actually out there. And I've talked with like some scholars, and they have some shady answers, and they're like, oh
It
well,
happens a
there
lot.
may have been other tribes, and I'm like, but from
Well, and they call it
where?
faith
But
for a reason. I mean, I bring this
yeah,
up with my girlfriend. She's Catholic as the big C. She doesn't go as much. I mean, for real. Like she's very not offensive, but she actually brings up good points about why, that she does the things that she
yeah,
does, and she's just like it just speaks to me, and it's what I believe in. And even though she's Mayan, I brought that up. I'm like, they kind of like supplanted your belief, and I go, yeah, but we were also sacrificing people too. So I'm like, you know what? All right, fair enough. Not as much as say the Aztecs, but the Mayans did some crazy stuff too. And in the end, it just comes down to what makes you a better person. And if that makes you a
exactly.
better person and helps other
Like
people
all for it.
and creates a community thing, then I'm all for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Whether
yeah, same.
Muslim faith, there's a lot of people, and the Jewish faith, and Hinduism, and the millions of others out there.
Yeah.
If it makes you a better person, it makes you help others, then I'm all about that. So, like I said, I'm not here to crap on anyone's faith.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And but like going
Right?
back to the name has power type thing, I think that's something really interesting with just the phenomenon in general, like just
Oh, sure.
paranormal, UFOs, any of that. Like I think a lot of it is how deep we believe something. And that's to me I equate it back to my lucid dreaming life where I used lucid dreaming to understand the difference between knowing something and believing something. So, like, when I was in a lucid dream, I know I'm dreaming, but so I know I can fly, but just knowing you can fly doesn't cut it. You have to believe you can fly. And there's a huge difference between those
Right.
two. And I think that like, when people are being like the paranormal is affecting them and they say like in Jesus name I cast you out and it works. I believe that comes from a deep belief in that and that you believe saying this is going to get rid of it.
Wow.
Because I mean I had similar experiences when I kept having those abduction experiences, like where I felt like I was being abducted
Yes.
in my dreams. Um, when I stood up to it and was like, no, no, not today. I don't want this today. When I did that, I had full belief that it will stop. And I remember I felt like I was being taken up. And this is again in a lucid dream, but I felt that pulling sensation and that I was being pulled up. And then when I had that no, not today, it gently set me back down, and it was like, go on, there you go. And I was able to
Wow.
continue on in my dream. And I
This
think that
I had
it's that
Daryl
consent.
Denton on. Yes, yes, yeah. I had Daryl Denton on there, and he was being like completely like attacked by this like group of Bigfoot. They were like banging on his house, and for like 2 months straight, and he was literally sitting in his like front foyer with his with like a shotgun and a pistol, like come on in. And he
Yeah.
talked to the great Scott Carpenter, rest in peace, Scott Carpenter, one of the great Bigfoot researchers that ever existed,
Yeah.
and his
Yeah.
son is carrying on. And he said, "Well, if you're a true believer in Christ, you need to go to the four cardinal points, and you need to like banish them by in the
Mhm.
name of Christ from your property." And then, like he said, after I did that, like you would hear them, but they would be off the property. So,
Huh.
and Daryl is the most for me. I'm not saying other people are not believable, but for me personally, when he talks and he talks cryptids, dude, I listen, dude, because this guy
Yeah.
knows him. Martin Groves are like best buds, and they've both have had incredible experiences. And then when he says that the name Jesus Christ holds sway, I have to believe him. He's just incredible when it
Yeah.
comes to those kind of things. So yeah, oof,
Yeah. And
this
I mean,
wow,
honestly, there really could be something to it. Like I I mean, how can I know whether or not? But it's, yeah, I just find that really interesting. Like that, I think it also speaks that humans have more power than we know, like behind
yeah.
some of this stuff, and that like,
Well, placebo effect is a complete and utter showing of that. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Or
yeah, people have died from taking sugar pills. Like,
for, I did that part. I didn't know.
yeah, yeah,
I thought they were
that's
actually
actually
listening to
happened.
the band Placebo and then like had an aneurysm.
No, they were. I can't remember when the study was done, but I remember in my psychology class we talked about this. But there was a test done, and these people were told they were taking sugar pills, but they were told like this pill is very dangerous, or could be. Please let us know if you have any of these symptoms. And there was somebody that was like, "Oh, I'm having every symptom that you've said," and uh, and that they actually died. Like they took them in, they're like, no, 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 you're fine. It's just a sugar pill. And they're like, no, I'm having these symptoms. And the person died, and they couldn't find anything. There was no reason for it.
Wow.
So,
So the
yeah,
power of the mind the power of your mind has both abilities. So
yep,
if you think
heal
about that,
and
not to get too conspiratorial, if they're telling you that the earth is being overheated, and I think it's true by measures of eons of what we've been, we're such horrible, horrible entities on this planet, what we're doing, that if you think that at all times, then it's going to make you feel sick. I'm not saying it's
yeah,
one way or another, but if they're telling you something and it keeps bombarding you in your mind, the mind and the body are connected. So therefore, you're going to get sick. So both suggestion will
hmm
has the power to do both. So yeah, so that's a very interesting thing that I don't think we're ever going to we're not able to grasp the concept of that. I think we're working our way towards it. I think this is an awakening happening. And I think more people like, me and you meet up and then like next thing you know, I'm like, oh, this guy's incredible. And I've met other people. Yeah, seriously, dude, you're fantastic. Just talking, you can talk about baking a cookie and I'm just like
oh,
sitting
I'll
on the
talk
edge.
about baking some cookies.
Yeah, you're really into. That's right. You're really into. I know you're like cook bake cookie. You're really into
Yeah,
like hot
somebody baking
sauces
cookies.
too. You're really
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
some big cookies. Yeah, you're really into hot sauces too, like ghost pepper. I got one down here called a Yucateca.
Oh,
You might. It's a special habanero sauce that even Mexicans like. Today I was at the job site and I had the girlfriend made like some sausage and egg sandwiches and I put some that hot sauce on it. And they looked at it and go, "You're eating that?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm Mexican now, baby," because it will make your lips numb, dude. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
yeah, you're just that kind of guy, dude. You're just so. I don't know. Did you take like speaking courses, or do you like it being the head of the shop? You have to get up in front of people and like do like presentations, or what is it? Has made you
Actually,
this way?
man, I don't know. Um, maybe the autism. I don't know, man. No, when I was in high school and through early college, I did do a lot of public speaking, and it was one of those things. Most people are terrified of public speaking. The concept of standing up in front of a group of people is like horrifying to most people. But I remember I did a conference, and there were and it was all about like healthy living type stuff. And there were like, I think there were.
I'm sorry not to laugh, but aren't you slightly overweight?
A girl. No, I was in good shape. Now hold on.
Oh, back then.
I was, I was like 18. I was in great shape.
Okay, if your 40-year-old self, close to 40-year-old self, can go back and tell your 18-year-old self to listen to your conference, would you?
Yeah. So, yeah. So there's like, dude, I think at this conference there were like 10,000 people, and in this one auditorium that I was in, it had like 3,000 of those people were in there, and it was so crazy that the silence was loud. Like when you weren't talking, you could hear mumbles just, and I had the whole place like paying attention to me and then like laughing at spots, and it was one of those things where I'm like, when I got off stage, I was like, oh God, what was that? But like, I don't know. I've never been. I think part of it is that I'm not a self-conscious person, so I'm like at all.
I'm super self-conscious, but at the same time, because I've stood up in front of, I don't know, I think music-wise, I've stood up in front of 4,000 one time.
Yeah.
Stand up, I've stood up in front of like 300. And that's a different thing. It's just your ideas. You're not just presenting something.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, hey, so you guys, cats are funny, and they just have to listen to you. That's you kind of get over it in a very quick way. So Fisher Spam wrote, did someone mention something about giants yesterday? What do you mean? What do you mean, like in the news? Okay, well, I don't know. What do you mean by that? Be quick. Answer quickly. Yeah, well, we were talking about giants in the Nephilim. We were talking a little bit about Kandahar. There's been a lot. I think a lot of these bones, like a lot of times when someone will go like and excavate, some type of archaeologist will go out in some of these places, like Göbekli Tepe or here in Central America. Sometimes they will find bones that are super large, and the Smithsonian just comes in and swoops and takes them away, which we're going to be talking about tomorrow, guys. We're going to be talking about a lot of like hidden history. So that's going to be fun. Yeah. That's
like there was something else that that you triggered a second ago that you were talking about, like about how we bring, like, I think that we can bring energy to ourselves and like cause healing or negativity. There was a recent, Tom DeLonge was recently interviewed by, I think it was Bloody Disgusting, the magazine or whatever.
Okay, I know who Tom DeLonge is, but I don't like his music. But
yeah. Well, they were talking about like the new book coming up, because the Gods and War, I believe, is coming out soon with Peter Levenda, and they also released the book Trinity, came out recently. But one of the things that he was talking about was that almost like his idea of why that there's so much hush about things that are paranormal, and why that like governments won't come out and openly admit that UFOs are real, that paranormal activity is real, like the hauntings are real. One of the things that he thought might be the reason for that is that if mass amount of people knew, like let's just say mass amount of people knew and believed that UFOs were real, that they are here, and that they are non-human intelligence, that could cause more of these. If a lot of people believed it was negative, could cause negative entities to be able to enter our world.
Yeah, there's an actual
and then it might be a massive disaster.
It's like a theory name for that. The more people believe in something, the more it becomes like reality. I've heard that before. That's like Dogman stuff, Bigfoot.
Yeah, and so if you now like think about a lot of the new age messages with love and light, and trying to get people to raise their vibration and increase their energy, like if more people did that, then all of a sudden we'd now have better things happen. So it's one of those things, like if the government came out and said, oh, it's all real, and they could be very dangerous, and everybody believes they're dangerous, it probably will be dangerous. But if they came out and was like, no, actually they're all love and light, maybe that's what would come. And so, but trying to
don't listen to the government.
Yeah, pretty much.
Neil, you said it, dude. I heard you say it. You can't take it back now. But it's kind of the truth, because we all know that the media outlets are basically just the mouthpiece for the government as well. So turn off your news
Yeah.
and turn in the
And
Eye of Jupiter,
and
guys.
and that's another really good point too. Like when that the media, things that the media puts out, we get back into our life again. Like back in the 70s when there were all these talks about these serial killers, like super serial killers
Yeah.
happening all the time. They kept happening more and more and more and more until the point where the FBI was like, listen, you have to stop talking about serial killers. And I believe that happened in like the 80s or so. Um, and like they actually made the media stop portraying them. And then all of a sudden now I mean, there are still people that are killing tons of people, but it's not happening as often.
Unlifing. Unlifing.
Laughing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And
God damn you, YouTube. You can't say that word. Like I'm not an adult. Like I haven't been around. Like I don't
yeah,
have a kid and pay taxes. Come on, YouTube. Get your
yeah.
stuff
And
together.
now, if you notice about the whole like, the stuff that happens to the little ones that, how do you say that with the school things that are bad things that are happening at schools?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the bad things
The
that
more
happened in
the
Vegas. Yes.
the
Go ahead,
more the
Neil.
media talks about it, the more it seems to happen.
Mm.
And it's like they just keep talking about it, keep like bringing it up, and then it just keeps happening over and over again. And it's like, well,
What
just
about the
how about
things
we
that do
just
happen that they don't talk about? There's also that
yeah,
side of the coin where you're
yeah,
just
that's
like,
true too.
really, we're not gonna talk about that, and it's just like, no, no,
No,
they're fine, they're safe and effective, guys.
yeah,
Shoot, that's
yeah.
I was smarter than most doctors, dude. How is that even possible? You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah,
what's crazy thing about it. Like the so much disinformation, which is a synonym for lying, to put out some other type of narrative. It's just such a strange world we live in, but I wouldn't want it any other way. It's just this AI thing is going to get really weird really quick. It's not even
oh yeah,
really AI. It's just it's some type of just an algorithm on But they have those what it is those computers now that reach into other dimensions and stuff.
yeah.
Like
Or those,
that's scary.
have you seen the little tiny brains that grew eyes? Have you seen those? Oh God, I can't remember what they're called now, but they're basically like little tiny brains that exist for like 200. They can live for like 200 days or so, and we can attach like microchips to them and have them do complex like calculations like a brain would, and they
So it's
like
like a
they
like a small Krang. That's a
it's
Teenage
no, I
Mutant Ninja
mean
Turtle reference.
yeah, yeah. I mean, no, I totally was right there with you, but they are like these little microprocessors. I wish I could remember what they were called. I could probably Google it, but
Yeah, look it up, dude. Shit, I don't know. You go ahead and look it up real quick. And I just want to talk about how incredible my chat has been tonight. I think we're up to 13. We have a lot of new people in here. I want to welcome each and every one of you. Freaky Geek, you're always on here. Of course, one of my moderators, Pam, Fisher of Spam, and Magical Journey. But we've had incredible. We had Audacious Amber. You're new. I don't think I've ever seen you on here before. Thanks and welcome to the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. There was a couple. I was like, "Who are these people? This is incredible." Someone was writing a lot about numbers and stuff like that, and that would have to be a whole nother episode. I can't even get it. I don't even know how to think about most of that stuff. This has been you guys. Oh, there it is. It's the person. Life goes on 66. If you go to 33, then what is that? That's a Mason thing. Anyhow, yeah, dude, these little brains. Did you pull it up?
yes, yeah, they're spherical brain organoids, and they basically are little stem cells that they took stem cells and they put like the brain tissue DNA in them, and they grew these little tiny brains, and then some of them grew eyes on top of that, and they can attach them to microprocessors and make them do complex calculations, and like they can basically create almost supercomputers out of these things. And what's really disturbing is that in one
So can we take one of
article,
these brains and put it into people who are on the spectrum? Is that possible?
really I could use it, um, but they
I'm speaking about myself. I'm on the spectrum somewhere.
well, the disturbing thing about it is that this one article I was reading, they're like, oh, in order to help boost these things along, they dump like serotonin into them, and I'm like, wait, they give it serotonin as a treat, which means that those things can feel, that they have
Oh
desires,
my,
that they feel euphoria, and if they feel euphoria, they feel pain, and we are creating these little tiny things and plugging them into microcontrollers, and we're like, do things for us, calculate things,
dude,
and
the
yet these things feel
implications of
pain.
that are mind blowing.
It's yes, it like it just got glazed over in this article. They're like, oh yeah, they help promote productivity by feeding it serotonin, and I'm like, girl, what?
Yeah,
I was like, that
that's kind of like, what's that
there's a
called?
lot of
Like that's whatever
implications.
Hitler was doing. What was Hitler doing? What
Yeah,
was that?
right.
Yeah, that's I don't know, because that brings up such a strange philosophical question of life and consciousness and what it
Yeah,
means and then what you're doing. So if these things can feel, that means they're also then, I would imagine, conscious of at least some
yeah,
level. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
and like I believe that some people are saying that they are
Well,
sentient as well, and it's
well,
like,
you do the same thing to grass too. If you put like fertilizer on it and put the sun on it, it grows. So should we be cutting our grass too? I don't know. I'm not saying grass are doing complicated analysis of like,
yeah,
market values or something like that, but still at the same time, it's kind of a weird concept to be meddling around with. We're so strange
yeah,
like that, aren't we, Neil? Humans are so
no,
weird.
and like the disturbing part about it is that I see the moral complications of that, but I'm also like, what can these things really do? Like, I still kind of want to. I'm like, yeah, no, keep doing your experiments, but just feel bad about it. Just
Yeah, yeah. At least be like I want to see an emo kid with like an eyedropper or something. Like,
yeah, yeah,
dude, Neil, uh, I'm gonna have to have you back on because you and me could talk about anything, and it's the discussion. I'm not going to get into the discussion we had before the green room, but it was one of those where we would definitely get kicked off YouTube for it. But it was so
yeah.
fun and it's funny and just think I have questions for Neil that I don't know, and he just starts telling me, and it's just like I gotta have you back on, dude. You're gonna be a regular guest, at least on the lives.
Yeah, that's
And
fine.
if this other, yeah, absolutely. And if this other thing starts kicking off, this I think what's the name of it again? I made the name and then I can't remember. That's what my brain does. That's gonna be tomorrow. Maybe I can look it up real quick on Facebook. Hold on, let's see how good I am. There it is. Forum of the Forbidden. And once in a while, dude, I would love to have you drop in and like
Yeah, join on a
just
round table.
go. Yeah, like a roundtable
Yeah,
discussion. You're just one of those kind of guys that are just amazing at it. And dude, thank you so much for coming on.
yeah, yeah. And oh, I wanted to tell you about one salvia trip.
Yeah. Oh
Real
yes.
quick
Okay,
too.
guys. Okay, guys. If you guys are still here, strap in. I kind of hinted at it at the beginning. It's one of my favorite stories I've ever heard on my podcast or the other one I was on, and I still think about it to this day. Neil, the floor is yours, buddy.
Yeah. Okay. So, for background, I had the first time I ever tried salvia. I was with my friend, the one I was telling about that had the stroke and recently passed. He
Oh,
was the first one that had me try it, and did not tell me what it was. And
oh.
I smoked it, and I saw a like what I would consider like an Acme cartoon rocket from like Looney Tunes pass by the window, picked me up, took me to space. I was in space. I saw the moon. I saw stars, and it was like there was this being that was there. I was like, "Yeah, here's space for you," and then let me back down. And I was just like, "What did you give me?" So, but then after that, I was like, "I want to explore this," and I explored it and explored it. And after a couple years of doing it, like quite a bit, and just trying out new things, there was one I was with him, same guy, and we were sitting down, we were watching some like visualizations, had some music playing, probably like Pink Floyd type stuff, whatever. And I hit it, and all of a sudden I'm in a whole nother world, and it's Earth, but it's in a different time. It's like there's no buildings, there's just land, and I'm a hunter gatherer, and I have a partner with me, and we're hunting, and we go through tons of time. Like I went through winters that were like we were starving, just like taking risks with berries, trying to find like anything we could find for food, to points where we were wandering in beautiful lands where there was just fruit everywhere. There were plenty of animals. I remember setting up traps to catch animals. I remember setting up these fences where we would take like thick vines and sticks and set them up and lead them almost like in a maze to an area that would like herd animals in, and they'd be trapped there, and we could easily like spear them to eat them. And um and it was just an easier way, a safer way of catching certain animals. And I remember doing all this stuff. I remember creating these weird traps. I remember creating fish traps, and I'm like, I can't be a hunter because I can't unalive animals. I just can't do it. But in this, I learned all these things, and I have all these memories of this entire lifetime. Um, the like I remember going through years of this, of like a full lifetime of being a hunter gatherer. And the last thing that happened in it was I was missing my friend because they were gone, and that partner that was with me wasn't with me anymore. And I was on a cliffside on a mountain, had a fire going. I can still see like the memory of it, seeing this like land below me and these like bare trees. Like it must have been fall was like approaching because the trees were all bare. And I'm from Florida. I don't know what fall is. I don't know if you guys.
I
That
live
does,
here in Yucatan. It's the same thing. I don't know what
yeah,
winter
that
is
doesn't
anymore.
exist.
It's like
Yeah,
hotter and a little bit drier sometimes, and that's about it.
yeah. So but I can still see that. I can see that landscape, and I can see the fire in front of me, and I have my back to a like another wall, like cliff wall. Um, and then I started to come out of the trip, and when I started to come out, I saw now this is the weirdest part, is that like my I saw my life partner from my trip in front of me, and he was laughing, and I was like, oh, we just smoked some shit. We found some shit on the mountain and we smoked it, and it blew my mind. And so I was like, oh, you're not gone, you're here. And I remember this like joy of like, oh, my partner's here. And then I started to come actually out of the trip, and now I'm sitting on the floor at my friend's house, and I'm just looking at him, and he's looking at me. He's like, where'd you go? Huh? You there? Are you back? And I was like, Greg, I have to tell you what I just experienced. I was like, I know how to set traps to catch animals. I don't know where I learned it from, but I know that now. Like, I have years of experience doing this, and it's the weirdest thing. I can still see so many of those memories. Like, I
You
can
can still see his
picture.
face.
Yeah, like, and that's a crazy thing too. In the partner in my trip did not look anything like the guy that was sitting with me in the room while we were actually tripping. So it was a completely different person. But like,
That's incredible.
I can remember all of it. I it's just like remembering, what you did a week ago. It's like that same.
Yeah,
It's crazy. Like, I've basically lived a whole
it's
nother life
it's
as a
it's
hunter
it's so
gatherer.
ingrained in your memory. Yeah, dude, that's crazy,
Yeah.
dude.
And like most of the other trips I had, like I was saying, like I just was waiting in line at the bank and then came out and like, well, nope, I guess I'm not at the bank. And like, most of them were dumb stuff like that. But but every once in a while, like just weird ones like that. Like,
Yeah,
I also did have I spoke with trees in one of them, and they gave me a gift. And this gift was this crazy plant that was like right in my face. And I was so grateful to the trees, and they're like, we're the same, but we're different. They're like, you do
I
your
had a
thing and you're okay. We'll do our thing and we're okay. But then the next day, my
yeah.
dad like cut down that bush, that plant, and I was like, that was my gift from the trees. I was like, damn, dad.
I had it one time where I smoked some really strong weed, and I hit it real hard, like in a pipe or something. And I was just laying in the grass in my backyard in Germany, and I had a big bush. It was a hazelnut bush, actually, and
Ooh,
it was kind of a tree, but it's a bush too. And it got really, really tall, and then just like fell on me and swallowed me. And then it was like 5 seconds. I went, and I was like, what? And it's yeah, dude. Psychedelics, another big thing on the show that I enjoy talking about. As you can see, I got the
yeah,
magic mushrooms behind me. It's just such an interesting thing that you can just, instead of taking like Kundalini yoga for like 50 years or something, to like sniff a freaking, some type of hallucinogenic type concept, you could just take one of these substances that are foreign. I don't think there's any like compound that is remotely like psilocybin that you can even find on the planet. It has like an extra phosphorus atom or something like that, or a molecule that is not found in any other like plant or animal species. And mushrooms themselves are like not really a plant, not really an animal. It's such a strange thing. There's a lot of like folklore around them as well, and it's just such an incredible thing that you can take something that at the beginning salvia wasn't even like a scheduled like drug that was put on the watch
totally
list.
Legal.
So and then like you take it and then have an experience where you're out there hunting and trapping and know what frost looks like, and then come back on your friend's floor and be like, I know how to trap and catch fish. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? It's such an incredible story.
But,
right,
actually, we'll also have to talk
ahead.
some time about deeper into psilocybin. I have some weird like theories
we'll
about
do that.
psilocybin.
I think back on like in September or something, like maybe towards the middle or end of September. I'm sure you guys on the pod here would love to have Neil back on, like I do. Like I said, me and him, like we've talked, I think in maybe altogether maybe 5 hours of our lives, either on the chat or on these podcasts, and it's never boring. It's never boring. It's always exciting and weird, and he teaches me a lot of things about what he does in his life, and I always have interesting stories, and he has a great laugh. He has a great sense of humor. He's very smart. I think so. I know you would say otherwise, but that shows how smart you are actually. And I love having you on the show, dude. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. And and everyone in the chat, thanks you as well for coming on. And for the love of God, please do a pod. Do something. Your golden pipes, your golden voice, your wonderful, cheerful personality always makes my day, brighter. And man, thanks for coming on.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Buddy. All right, buddy. So that was the great and wonderful and powerful Neil Ballas. He's just fantastic, and as you guys can see, he's just a guy that if ever I can get a chance to get him on here, like we missed out. He had he was talking about his friend that he lost. He's a real dude. He's just the best. And thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you. I think we're up to 13 on a Wednesday, which is incredible. If you keep finding yourself coming back to the show, don't forget to like and subscribe. Go ahead and check it. I got to go ahead and redo all my links below and make sure I add Magical on there and add on my buddy Jim's his podcast as well. His show. He has a lot of incredible experiences. He's actually going to be coming on the show. We did a recording about his CE5, who I think Neil has also did some CE5. It's an incredible Neil. You have to check that one out. He's in the green room. I think you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, Neil. Thumbs up. All right, you can hear. You got to check that one out. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. We have a great episode coming out this week on Friday. Let me see which one it is real quick. That way I can promote it. Let's go ahead and take a look. You see, YouTube Studio. Hurry up! My internet is crap today. Content. The episode coming out this Friday is going to be, Random Nautica and Skinwalker Ranch. I had on a podcast. And they're great. It's only an audio, but I you can see my wonderful face. I have a nice big pimple here today, which you can't really tell because I have the lights. My lighting I have to work on. It's a little too harsh. Should be a little softer. Thank you all very much. You can check me out on YouTube. Like here, you got my Facebook group. You can go over there and drop any cool experiences you have. You can contact me on my email. And thank you all very much. And remember, you are watching the Eye of Jupiter. We are the Eye, and we are aware. Love you all. Thanks for watching.